Welcome to part 4 of the Sapphire Builder Essentials. Now that we have broken down the layout and the basic inputs and outputs of Builder, we're now going to focus on the two workflows of combining filters in this environment. Remember that the end goal of Builder is to create a new Sapphire preset through a combination of individual Sapphire filters. This allows you to standardize a look design in production, still allow for adjustments, and make it easy to share and use with others, including assistants and juniors. Apply S-Effect onto your clip and click Edit Effect to launch Builder. So let's jump right in and see how you can combine effects in Sapphire Builder. The first workflow of adding effects is by simply stacking them one after the other. For instance, let's apply some stylization. Scrolling the Components panel, locate the Stylize group and find the bandpass filter. You could have searched for it in the Components search bar at the top of the panel. Now drag it either on top of the connection between the source and the result, or on top of the viewer. So one effect has been applied to your image, and you can tweak the selection parameters to tune the look. This is the equivalent of adding a single Sapphire filter in your host. To add a second effect in Builder, select the bandpass node and using a different method, press Tab. In the floating window, let's look for streaks. Clicking that effect adds it after the bandpass node in the workspace. Now grab the outer box in the viewer and drag it to create the streaking effect. Let's make the streaks more prominent by adjusting a few of the settings. So to be clear, the flow of the effect is going from source to result. The bandpass is applied first, followed by the streaks. This concept should be familiar to you if you were applying individual Sapphire filters on top of each other in your editing or VFX host. You can stack as many effects as you need in Builder. The performance is great, and it's so quick to switch between different effects for adjustment. Now at this time, you should be seeing the overall result of Builder in the viewer. Whichever node you select, you can adjust the settings and always see the final result. However, there are times where you'll want to see the output of a specific node rather than the overall result. By enabling the preview up to selected node, the viewer will now be updated to the output of the selected node. If you want to see the Builder output again, just turn the option off. Here's another thought. If you want to switch the effects around and have the streaks come before the bandpass, you need to perform a gestural operation. You can either manually break the connections by dragging them, move the node, and then manually reconnect the connections. Or a more efficient way is to hold Shift and Alt or Option and drag one node over the other. This pulls out the node and reconnects it into the new location in a single operation. Super easy and efficient. As a quick tip, selecting one or multiple nodes gives you access to a right-click menu where you can choose various operations to apply to the selection. So what you have learned so far is simply stacking one effect on top of another. However, to be even more creative with combining Sapphire filters, sometimes stacking effects in Builder is not enough. Let's move on to this shot and look at the different ways to combine effects. As before, we're starting in a fresh Builder with only a source and a result. Now, for this shot, I'd like to create an interesting look consisting of an outline, a smudgy fill, and some rays. So let's start off by using a Median effect to create the smudgy look. Use whatever effect selection works best for you and add it to the workspace. To create the smudge effect, just increase the size parameter. That will do nicely. Next, let's create the outlines to go on top of the smudge. This can be done with an Edge Detect filter. I'll press Tab for the floating window and Filter for an Edge Detect. As a result of stacking the nodes one after the other, the detecting edges generate off the smudge effect. You might like this, but I want the outlines from the original shot. Therefore, stacking effects like this won't work. Instead, use Shift and Option or Alt to pull the Edge Detect node out of the connection. Next, drag a new connection from the source to the Edge Detect. So your original image is now creating two separate branches of effects, one for the median filter and one for the Edge Detect filter. Now, this is the perfect example of needing to see the output of each node rather than the overall output of Builder. To see your selected node in the viewer, enable Preview up to the selected node. You should now be able to select between the two filters and see their effects. Note that the Edge Detect node shows up as a red color. This means that it isn't connected to the result and therefore won't contribute to the end result yet. You'll be able to combine these together later in the workspace, but now you have the means to build the elements separately. So for the outlines, let's make them mono and use the threshold and brightness to tune exactly the look we want. Great. You could keep adding effects to each branch to develop the look further, but the next step is to recombine them as a single output. To do this, select the node that will be your foreground input. In this case, we want the edges composited over the smudgy fill. Press Tab and look for the Layer tool. Press Enter to apply it. A wide layer node appears and automatically connects to the selected Edge Detect as the foreground input. Connect the median node as the background input, and finally, connect the output of the layer node to the result. To combine the two inputs together, go to the selection parameters of the layer and set the blend mode to overlay. You should also notice that the Edge Detect is no longer red. This shows you that it is now connected to the end result. Because the workspace is freeform and not locked like a timeline or a sequence, this is a great workflow for building unique looks. To finish this off, we'll add one more effect on top of the combined result. Ensuring the layer node is selected, add an edge raise filter. In the selection parameters, adjust the RGB parameters to tweak the colors, add a touch of blur to the raise, and bring the edge brightness all the way down. So in summary, we took a single output, your source, broke it out into two separate branches to apply separate effects, and then combined the two branches together into one new image for output. Now, this entire time, we've only been working with one input. Depending on your host, I'm referring to the shot or clip containing the S effect. But frequently, you may be supplied with a background, a matte, or a mask that you will need inside the Builder workspace. So in the next video, we'll look at ways of adding these external sources as part of your custom look development. See you in the next video.